tunnel fire. We're here. It's an example of the emerging incident. And then also, we're here until either a more higher qualified incident management team is in place, and or we get to a point where we can hand an incident back to a local unit. So that's what we are. And again, I want to stress that we are a local group of people. We're all personally invested in this area, in this community. A lot of us are from the Flagstaff area, live here, maybe grown up here, etc. So, this is a very personal thing for me and my team, and we hope to do you guys justice in our work. So, with that, I'll hand this over to my operations section chief, Stephen Van Kirk, for an operational update on the fire.
Good evening, everyone. First, I want to take the time to recognize the local unit who put us in the place that we are. As of us taking the fire, they did a tremendous job and left us in a good spot to get after some work today. Sorry, I'm going to turn my back to you. So I'll start in Division Alpha. Alpha Zulu is west of 89, and that's where we put a majority of the resources today. In Division Alpha, working north towards 89, we were trying to keep that fire below the 420 road, the Waterline Road. In a few places it crossed, and we spent all day trying to corral what had crossed. And we kept getting spot fires all day, but so far we're doing good at battling the spot fires. As you work to the north and east, you enter into Division Bravo and Charlie. The movement in Division Charlie was a bit to the north today. Those folks were coming along trying to stop that northern movement, but it does have some northern movement to it with the wind that showed up today. As you come out around Division Charlie and into Division Mike, you see the area that heads north. That's where most of the fire movement was today. Division Mike is unstaffed because it is the head of the fire, and for now there are no values at risk out there. As you come back around into Division X-Ray and Whiskey, back to 89, another good effort in there today. They made good progress to the east, and they're basically working out towards the head of the fire, and they'll eventually incorporate into Division Mike as Division Bravo Charlie comes around their side. Coming back into Division Zulu, a lot of work was put in mopping up around the community in there, checking for hazards, getting the appropriate companies in to deal with utilities. Lots of presence in there today, dealing with basically the open line and seeing what they could do to start suppressing that stuff that impacted that community in there. And that ties us back into the origin with Division Alpha and Zulu. That is dozer line coming off to the community. Last night that ended up spotting on us, but we ended up keeping it in check with the resources that we had over through the night shift last night. That's it.
I believe that is Stephen Van Kirk, Operations Section Chief for the Incident Management Team. And we are going, Brian, our weather guy.
Thank you very much. I'd like to express my thanks to the county, the city, the Forest Service, and all of you for your diligence, your hard work working through this incident. We have a lot of work before us, but thank you all for your patience. The event that happened Tuesday was dramatic, and I only have 2 slides today. One is just a brief explanation of what happened on Tuesday, and the second is the weather outlook that we have. The first slide up here basically shows the conditions that came into place on Tuesday. Those of you in the area in Donny Park recognize that Tuesday started relatively quiet. Winds were not that strong. And suddenly the winds were blowing 30, 40, perhaps even 50 miles an hour. The reason for this, for those of us that live in Donny Park, we kind of know it well. we're on the lee side of the mountains, and during these strong southwest wind events, when we have a trough out to our west or north, the winds are funneled over and then down on the other side, on the lee side of the peaks. And while in the evening and at nighttime, it might be fairly calm at the surface. As soon as the sun rises, or I should say, as soon as the sun rose on Tuesday, those winds started to funnel down to the surface, and we saw very strong winds for much of the day on Tuesday. It's these same conditions that cause the extension of the strong winds overnight. For instance, that we saw last night, where the winds were howling well into the evening, even past midnight last night. These downslope winds, that we call them, funneled because of the mountains down into the Donny Park area, can extend to these high wind events well into the evening, often overnight, sometimes dissipating then the next morning. We've all seen it many times. It's at these times that folks on the west side of Flagstaff might not be feeling any winds, but those on the east side of Flagstaff certainly are under the influence of the strong winds. Next slide. So what is the outlook for us? Continued breezy to windy over the next couple days. We've issued a red flag warning for tomorrow. Okay, winds will be stronger tomorrow. Relative humidities will decrease, bringing what we call critical fire weather conditions to the area. Conditions that are conducive to rapid wildfire growth. Let's move on. Beyond that, these conditions are expected to continue well into Thursday night, especially on the east side of Flagstaff in the Donny Park area, with the strong winds continuing well into Thursday evening. We have a strong front moving into the area on Friday. This is a good news, bad news scenario. The good news is temperatures will be cooler. Relative humidities will rise on Friday, so we're not going to have those critically low relative humidities on Friday. Bad news, the winds will be even stronger on Friday. We're looking at gusts perhaps up to 50 miles an hour on Friday. Okay? The front will pass. Temperatures will cool significantly Friday and then Saturday, Sunday through Monday. We're going to have a shift of the winds to the north as the front passes through. These are going to be lighter winds, probably 15 to 20 from the north, continuing Saturday, Sunday, and then into Monday. Next week, looks like breezy southwest winds will continue in our typical springtime pattern. We'll crank up once again. How do things look for the rest of the year, or at least for the rest of our spring season? It is spring in Flagstaff, which means it's going to be breezy, mostly dry, with only occasional storms out there. Right now, I don't see any significant storms in the near future. There's a chance of some showers on Friday with that frontal passage, but beyond that, it's going to be dry. So folks, we have entered our fire season, okay? It's going to be a long one this year. We're going to need patience. We're going to need your help to get through this. So, and the National Weather Service is here to help any way we can as well. So, thank you.
So we have Matt McGrath, Flagstaff District Ranger, Coconino National Forest.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Matt McGrath. I'm the District Ranger for the Flagstaff Ranger District here on the Coconino National Forest. First of all, I want to thank our partners and our cooperators, many of who have already spoken, for our outstanding working relationship. It's unfortunate that oftentimes it's situations like this that actually bring us together, but at least when we have these situations, we know that we work very well together as we try to address it. Matt and Stephen were able to share an operational update, and then also got a weather update, which is not great for the next couple of days. But beyond those things, I also want to take a moment to acknowledge the pain and the stress in the community. I understand it, and I feel it too, because most of our folks, as Matt talked about, are from Flagstaff. I've lived here for 4 years now. I can't imagine a better place to be. And a lot of the folks out on the line are from here. A lot of them are born here and raised here, and are under that same critical stress and concern that many of the folks here in the room are going through right now. Several folks have been evacuated. One of our employees lost their home. So we understand it. We understand how you're feeling, and we feel it with you. With that, with that stress among our fire folks, we're looking forward, we're looking ahead, we're looking at tomorrow, and our folks are putting that aside, and they're out there, in spite of what's going on in the community, they're out there doing everything they can. They're concerned about what happened in the past couple days, but they're focused right now on moving forward and doing everything they can to keep folks safe from here on out. So I want to thank everybody for your time today. I want to thank you for your understanding, and really just acknowledge that we understand what people are going through, because many of our folks are going through it too. Thank you.
And next, we'd like to welcome Jim Driscoll, Coconino County Sheriff.
Well, thank you and good evening. As you've heard tonight, all of us understand the frustration and the inconvenience that you've all been put through. This is a difficult time. We have county employees, we have people who work for us as law enforcement officers and staff that are also evacuated. And they understand it, but it is certainly difficult and frustrating for them as well. They can't even get home to change their uniforms. So we share, I guess, in some of the pain you're experiencing right now. The role of law enforcement is fourfold for these kinds of disasters and wildland fires. The first is to evacuate, successfully and safely evacuate. Then to provide security in those evacuated areas, provide traffic control in those areas, and then finally to provide an orderly and safe re-entry. And the re-entry is what I'd like to talk about, because I think that's what you want to hear tonight, is when are we going to allow people back in to your homes? And believe me, I would love to be able to tell you when. I would love to be able to say when exactly this is going to happen. But there's a lot of factors, and you heard from Brian Klimowski a minute ago about the potential for the next couple of days with the fire weather. So we have to take that into consideration as well. Re-entry is important, but it has to be done safely. And there are still hazards out in that area. As we look at things like the existing fire, there are still burning fires out in that area. Propane tanks, hazardous materials, and other combustibles that are still out there. There are animals. There may be animals that are very afraid and could end up biting people or trying to get into homes or cars. There's utilities out there where the utility companies need to come out and conduct activities to render those areas safe as well. There's the roads. Some of the roads may not be safe. There's a lot of burning of stumps and things underground that will present hazards for people in the area. And then ultimately the safety of the firefighters who are still in there. To have vehicles and lots of people driving in, there's still fire apparatus, there's still active fire fighting going on in these areas. And we need to have it safe for you to get in. So again, I will commit, we will get you in as soon as we possibly can, but we have to do it safely first. Our job is to provide information and to contact people. And you heard from Chair Horstman a few minutes ago about registering your name and address and your contact information so we can get with you. If you haven't done it, please do it. That's so important so that we're not delayed, so we don't have people who somehow don't get that message when the all clear is given and people are allowed back into their homes. We will also continue to have staff, deputies out there as well to make sure it's safe and that we don't have people inappropriately coming into that area that don't live there, either souvenir people who are looking for souvenirs or photos or things that they're really not entitled to get. The last thing I want to say is there were a lot of us involved in this. This wasn't the law enforcement aspect and fire. We had people from the Arizona Department of Public Safety, from Game and Fish, Forest Service, law enforcement, Flagstaff Police helped us. Navajo County Sheriff's Office is there helping us. Coconino County Public Works has essentially shut down all our operations so they can help us. But we have volunteers in the community that help. Our community emergency response team, CERT, and our search and rescue have been working round the clock, keeping the area safe and getting people evacuated out of there. So lastly, I just want to say that the decision to get you back in is one that's going to be made in conjunction with the Fire Incident Command. We don't make this on our own. When it is safe, we will have that discussion, and we will make the decision to allow people back in and then do our best to conduct an orderly and safe re-entry. Thank you.
And next, we'd like to introduce Joel Bunnis, Preparation Division Manager, Coconino County Health and Human Services.
Good evening, everybody. I'm Joel Bunnis from Coconino County Health and Human Services here to talk about the Assistance Center. I'm glad you all came tonight. I'm glad you're relatively safe and sound. So until you can go back, you're opening up an Assistance Center. You can go to the next slide. So this is how the concept works, essentially. There's a couple of different ways to access the Assistance Center, and the idea is a need that you may have. You've identified a need. There's a couple of ways that I'll get to on how you contact the Assistance Center, and then we get in contact with the service provider and take care of your need. That's the whole concept behind it. So next slide. All right, there are 3 ways to access the Assistance Center. The first is tomorrow. It was mentioned earlier that we're going to have an in-person, an actual Assistance Center, and we are. It opens at 9 o'clock tomorrow and closes at 7 o'clock tomorrow evening. From 12:30 to 3, there'll be food services there available to hand out food or supplement any nutrition needs that you have. The other way to do it is to call our call center. I can't read it from here without keeping turning around, but that's the phone number. You also saw when you came in this morning, or this evening, cards that were at the front desk at the bottom of the stairs. There's a QR code on here that if you take a picture of that with your camera, it will link you to our website where you can fill out an assistance form. So those are the 3 ways you can do it. You can either call our call center, who will ask you for your name, address, and phone number, and what needs you may have, and then that will get forwarded to the appropriate provider. You can come in person, we'll register you there, say what your needs are, and we're going to hook you up with the appropriate provider. And then the third way is to just log on to our website at coconino.az.gov, and the very first thing that will come up on the top says Tunnel Flyer. And you click on there, and it'll bring you to all of the different resources. So next slide. All right, so to better serve your needs, these are the only things you need to come prepared with. A name, address, and phone number. That's it, that's all you need. And then what services that you may need, and I'll cover that in just about a minute. So next slide. So here's how it works. You either arrive at the Assistance Center, or you contact the call center. That request is then taken in with your name, address, and phone number. So you give that either to the call center or to the human being you're dealing with at our Assistance Center. And then we then forward that information to the service provider. It's very straightforward, and it's meant to be very simple. You may receive a follow-up phone call because at the end of each day we contact each of the providers to make sure that they got all the names right, that they're reaching out, and if not, we will then reach back out to you and let you know exactly what's going on. So the different services that are going to be available, behavioral health services, and that's if you want to talk to a counselor or just talk to somebody. Food, water, housing assistance, animal care, and financial assistance. There are a couple of animal shelters that are currently set up for both small and large animals that we can direct you to. And that is all I have. So you can either call in, go to our website, or come to the Assistance Center in person. So thank you.
And our last speaker before we take questions to talk about recovery efforts is Lucinda Andriani, Deputy County Manager.
All right, I recognize a number of faces out there. It's been a while, but I think many of you that were with us through Schultz, we were with you through Schultz, the fire and flooding, know me, recognize the name, and I'm definitely a little grayer and older and whiter right now than I was then, but I hope that you remember the level of caring that I have for this area and how much I personally invested in the efforts that took place out there after the fire and the catastrophic flooding, and that caring hasn't diminished. I care deeply for this area, and we will work extremely hard to do whatever we can to support the recovery out in this area. So I want you to know that that commitment runs deep with the entire team at the county, runs very deep with the Public Works team and all the different teams that are involved in response right now. So, as you've heard, I want to also really, extend my sympathy. This is a loss. I mean, this is a really difficult time, and it is going to be a very impactful event. And I want you to know that I'm very sympathetic of what you're experiencing and how challenging a time this is going to be. And I want you to know we're going to be here with you through the entire process, like we were last time. So I think some of you are aware that in 2018 we had a major fire out in the Blue Ridge area where we lost 32 homes, and we learned a lot of lessons from that, and we're going to take those lessons and other lessons we've learned since then and apply them to this situation in terms of mobilizing recovery efforts. We've already have been very proactive with communication, obviously at the local level, but at the state and federal level. And we've been working very closely with the state and federal emergency organizations. And we've got tremendous support, and I want to acknowledge that our congressional representatives have, Tom O'Halloran, Representative O'Halloran was here last night and is coming back this evening. And just tremendous support already. And we have representatives here from Senator Kelly and Sinema's office as well. And they are already really advocating on your behalf and supporting our advocacy efforts. So we're also reaching out to a lot of other types of services, as Joel shared, but also other entities that can help support. One group that we utilized during the Tinder fire post-fire it's a group called Team Rubicon. They are veterans who have equipment skills and other skills to help with cleanup and recovery after disasters, and we've already been in contact with them. And as we identify what the needs are, we will work with them to hopefully mobilize resources to come up and assist with those kinds of efforts, and other entities as well. We are working, as I mentioned, very closely with the Arizona Department of Emergency Management, and that's kind of our link to the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA. So it's DEMA and FEMA, and we are prepared as soon as the sheriff and the fire team indicate that it's safe for the assessment teams to go in and do property assessment. Everybody's poised, ready to go. The technology's ready. The people are ready. We will have teams going property to property and doing assessments. They will be, a representative from the sheriff's office. There'll be a representative deputy. There'll be a representative from community development, likely one of our building inspectors, as well as a representative, an assessment person from the Department of Emergency Management at the state level, conducting the assessments. And as you know, some of you that went through Schultz, that then there's a process that the state emergency management goes through to decide, what are we qualified for in terms of federal and or state public assistance or individual assistance, and you have to meet certain thresholds, very similar, although the thresholds are frankly much higher now than they were during Schultz. So we're working very closely with them to prep everything so we can move through those processes, hopefully very efficiently. And we've got some really great technical assets now that we're utilizing to support those efforts. We're working, we've already engaged all of our waste management vendors and to get dumpsters out into the area and other things to help dispose of any burned materials and other things that you're going to want to get off your properties. And of course, for other assistance, we're working very closely with United Way already. As Joel mentioned, the Assistance Center, but we're already working with them. As you know, during Schultz, we mobilized over 1,000 volunteers in partnership with United Way, and they are prepared to exercise that effort again to assist all of you with property recovery. And so, with that, I want to then step into, I think many of you know I also serve as the Flood Control District Administrator. And I want to step in, put that hat on for a minute, because we've had a lot of questions about will we see flooding? And that's, not surprising that you're bringing those questions up. And I'm actually, this is an important aspect of what we experience in this area when we have wildfires. You know that better than anybody in this community. So we have tonight, there will be a flight conducted, an infrared flight conducted that will give us very detailed information about the fire and the characteristics of the fire, the intensity of that fire. We have a boundary right now of that fire. It has extended about mid-height, and in some areas, as noted earlier, as far up as the Waterline Road. But with that infrared flight, we will get a lot more detail on what's been burned and the severity of the burn. And it's the severity and the steepness of the slopes that's the critical factors, as those of you that went through this before will remember. So we'll take that information, and tomorrow we'll begin to run the models. There are 5 watersheds that are affected, basically Campbell North through Pocky Trails. And, it's Campbell, Copeland, Peaceful, Thames, and Lenox. And basically those kind of marry up with various neighborhoods there. So we will take that information, we'll run it through the modeling that we did before. You'll remember the Flow 2D modeling that we did to predict under various conditions, rainfall conditions, what's the level of flooding we may see or not see. Obviously, the burn scar from Schultz very much influences what we think will influence what we may see. But I think right now we can expect that we will see some heightened amount of water coming during the monsoon season. And so, but we'll do that analysis if we identify that there is a threat. And there'll be some level of threat because, as some of you experienced more in the northern area, back in 2018 when we had the 1,000-year rain event, you can't predict what kind of rain events we're going to get. And so we will work to identify where are the threats, and if we need to mobilize the resources to manage those threats, we will do so like we did then. And it'll be all boots on the ground and mobilizing very quickly to support you in trying to mitigate those impacts to your properties. So that's where we are. There's a lot of moving parts right now. There's a lot of people working on your behalf, and they all care very deeply about this area. They know that there's a lot of stress coming from people who went through this before, and people are very sensitive to that. So we're here for you. We care about you, and hang in there with us. Are we perfect? No. And, there will be things that we won't do perfectly. But know that our heart's in the right place. You know that about us. We worked really hard to effectuate the mitigation we did before. We need to rebuild mitigation. If we need to do what we need to do, we will do it. This county is committed. So with that, I think we're turning it back over to our chair. Thank you.
So before I forget, I would, because we did forget, Superintendent Mike Pensa, and I want to thank FUSD and Mike Pensa for allowing us to use this wonderful gathering space, and thank you very much for your time and letting us use your place this evening. So with that, I know that many of you have questions, and we may not be able to answer them all, but we are going to try. So with that, I would like we have our able mic carrier, so if you could raise your hand. And again, I'm going to ask you to, if you can, to ask one question, keep it to one question. And please listen, if your question's been answered, don't re-ask it. I'm sure have a lot of people that would like to have their questions answered here this evening. Over the Forest Service.
So if I think I understood your question, you were concerned about the about the wind changes coming. So right now, typically we're experiencing a southwest wind with the weather system that's going to be coming in, approaching. Potentially those winds can shift back to the north and push that stuff back to the south. So what we have right now in the area where we do have fire in the Timberline and Fernwood areas, we're trying to establish control lines, direct lines along those fire edges, and having some degree of success today with that. So the idea is to stop that spread within the neighborhood communities, and then be able to monitor it and have the resources there to monitor in case something spots out or something of that sort. What's that?
You're not doing it ahead of time, you're waiting?
No, we have people there. That's what we did all day today.
Okay.
Yeah, that's our main priority today, tomorrow, until we have that fire stopped completely within that community. That is our number one priority strategically and tactically at this point. So we do have we also did, can we scroll back to that map and I'll just point out a couple things on that if you could. So if you see back over in the southwest area here in Division Alpha and Zulu, again, that line over there between Division Zulu and Highway 89 and into Fernwood on the other side of Highway 89 there, again, that's our primary concerns there. Also in Division Alpha. So that's where the bulk of the resources are working. And, so again, we do have a couple management action points actually set up that aren't on this map. One would be right around where that division of whiskey alphabet is there. And so if you were to draw a straight line east-west, if fire got to that point, that would be another trigger for another round of evacuations, possibly in the Donny Park proper area. To the north, up towards Division Charlie, again where those letters are in that neck of the woods, if we see fire crest and go over to the north side of O'Leary, that'll be another management action point to initiate evacuations up towards Antelope Hills. So those are two new things that we developed today, not on this map. But to reemphasize again, our focus is today, tomorrow, and however long else we're out here, to stay in that community to try to prevent some sort of issue there.
Other questions?
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for taking my question. My name's John Washer, and I have property out in Timberline. Last night, I don't know about today, but we did not see air assets. Was that primarily due to weather restrictions, or is it just because it's such an early seasonal event that they just weren't available? And then to kind of follow on that, can we expect to see anything in the coming days?
Yeah, let me apologize first. I wanted to address that when I spoke earlier, but it slipped my mind. So we requested retardant first thing this morning, and we have reached that weather threshold that the fixed wing and the rotor wing assets will not fly. So it's not that it's not being requested, it has been requested, and Air Attack talks to the pilots, and the pilots are not comfortable flying in this wind. So you can imagine what the next 2 days are going to bring.
Other questions?
Hi, my question is going to be just a little bit different because I'm not a resident of Flagstaff. I'm a visitor. I was camping in the Coconino forest across from 89 from the volcano.
Sunset Crater?
Yes. Because I'm a stranger, I don't understand anything that map is telling me. The one question that I have is camping across 89 down that road that's straight across from the crater of half a mile down. I've had to leave everything I own in my conversion van there. What I'm understanding is it's going to be at least 3 or 4 more days before I can get up into that area. Is that correct?
Thank you for the question. I'm going to ask the sheriff to answer that.
We have staff here, and we'd like to get with you afterwards. This area was evacuated, part of the evacuation order, and we will try to get an escort to get you in, lead you out of that. Because that area, the fire people can tell we're safe enough to do that across from Sunset Crater. Okay, yeah. So I have several staff here. We will get with you and try to get you out of there tomorrow.
Thank you.
You bet.
And thank you for visiting us here in Coconino County.
Hi, my name is Mike. First of all, thank you guys for the effort that you're putting out there. I can't imagine the burden that you have to do here. My daughter Cassidy lives here. One second. All right, so this morning she lost everything, their home, everything. And my question, I guess, is probably for the community assistance guy. Do we have any kind of a contingency here for short-term housing so that they can try to put their lives back together, because they work up here. I live in Phoenix. Obviously, they could come down and live with us, but their lives are up here now. So we're staying in a hotel right now. The Red Cross, St. Mary's Food Bank was good enough to rent them a hotel room for a couple of nights, but as of Friday, they're looking at $200 a night in those hotel rooms. So what can we do to help these kids get back their lives over the short term so they can move on?
Thank you, Joel.
Thanks for the question. Sorry about the situation. We are working on temporary housing that could be available to them. So tomorrow morning, if they can call or come by the assistance center, we'll be able to help them.
That's not shelter housing, right?
Nope, that would be housing either in a hotel or assistance for rent. Yep, it's actually just bringing that up.
Okay.
Can you go back to the slide? I don't have it. So just need these slides a little more. Yep, right there. It's the guidance center. It's actually very close to us. That's the address. It's off of Industrial or off of Vicky Street. So if you put it into your phone GPS, it'll bring you right there. It's actually about 1.5 miles from here.
Well, I know you mentioned they're going to put dumpsters out to help remove some debris. Will the county provide equipment to help remove debris from burned houses?
This is Lucinda.
Yes, that's one of the key functions of Team Rubicon, is to go out. They bring in heavy equipment and they did just a phenomenal job out in Blue Ridge, and they bring in heavy equipment, they bring in physical resources, and we bring in the dumpsters and all the I'll say the solid waste removal part of it, right? And you know, that's the goal, is to, and then so people will get that kind of support if their home has been damaged or destroyed. So, and we may look to other resources as well. You know, so right now they're on call, right? They're on standby until, obviously they can't go in like all of you. They can't go in until it's safe either, right? So.
Good evening all. Most of you know me as Fawn Toya, but I want to share an experience I had on my way over. I drove and I was a little late, but I ran into a woman outside, and I represent her right now. Her name is Callie Becker. She told me that she couldn't access the building. She could not walk. She told me she only had 2 dogs and her vehicle. She is at KOA, so I just want you to know that, if you can, please help these individuals that have disabilities, and maybe make a phone number that they can call to for assistance. And yeah, this is for Callie Becker. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Ma'am, if you would stay after, if we can get her number from you, somebody will reach out to her immediately.
Other questions?
Hi, thanks for what you've been doing so far. My question is about, for people whose homes have been burned, we've been hearing that there's a couple dozen homes that have been burned. If you can't get in, but you can identify that your home has burned, you can start talking to insurance and trying to make long-term plans. So do you have a plan for starting to release that information? And then if not, I heard somebody say 24 to 30 or 3 to 4 days. When actually do you think you're going to start putting out information? Because honestly, there has not been a lot of information released.
Thank you for that.
Yes, and I think you're right. I was in there today, and the estimate is about 25 homes. That's why it's so important to get the names out. We would like to get those people identified as early as possible who did lose their homes, make them aware, and get that process expedited and started as soon as possible before we release everybody to come back in. As soon as it is safe to get the people who are doing those assessments back in. And that again, you know, the weather's a huge factor in that. If it's really windy tomorrow and the fire blows up again, it just pushes that back. But again, our desire is to get this done as soon as possible so we can get the other people back into those homes. And I realize it's difficult, but we got to be safe in what we do first. And as soon as we can get those people who did lose their homes advised, and then we will make a special trip to get those people there, and as well as those insurance folks. So again, please register with us so we're able to contact you. Did that answer your question? Okay.
We were actually out there this afternoon with the senators, representatives Kelly and Sinema, and I will tell you, it is still very much an active fire scene out there. And part of this, of course, of when we can get in and get you all back in is going to really depend on the weather coming up. So, any other questions?
When is that infrared survey data going to be available to us, and where?
That's a great question. Lucinda?
So those flights are usually done overnight and then made available early morning off the FTP site. So if you go to the NC web page for this incident, there should be a link in there for some maps. But in either case, in our public releases for tomorrow, we'll have those maps available to be viewed either in person or virtually.
Where are those maps available? What's the website?
Are you familiar with NCWeb?
Yes.
Okay, so start there and see, once they get updated after the flight occurs and after the map is produced, probably early morning or mid-morning, they should be available through there. We can post it to that NC website as well.
All right, thank you.
So there is on the front page of the county's website, at the top, there's an emergency banner, and if you hit that link, it's specific to this fire. And if you go to that, there's the resources. We're posting up the resources and information there. As soon as we get it, we're posting there, as well as, of course, getting it out to the media and so forth too. If obviously it's that nature that it goes to the media, but that information is there. And so once we have that information, it'll all get posted to that website.
Some other questions? Okay.
We have some animals that we weren't able to get in the Fernwood area. Are we allowed to go back on a daily basis and check on them and make sure they're fed, they're taken care of?
Sheriff?
I know a lot of people want back in just for that very kind of thing. We will try, as staffing permits, during daylight hours, and depending on the weather, if you will contact our office, we will try, but we will escort, if we have the staff, escort you in, take care of the business, and escort you right back out. And again, you may have to wait a while to get this done because we've had numerous requests, and we've been able to do most of them, but not all. So again, we won't do it in dark hours, but we will make every attempt to try to get that done during daylight, just contacting our office. And we would escort you in through the roadblock, conduct the business quickly, and then escort you back out.
Would you be able to post and transfer the summary of the proceedings here for people who have trouble hearing? We're very interested, but we can't hear half of what's going on.
Thank you. And by the way, this is being recorded, and it will be on the county website. Hopefully that will make it easier for those that may be having some problems hearing this evening. Absolutely, thank you.
We've already registered for loss of house. How soon can we expect to hear about cleanup?
Well, first and foremost, it has to be safe for everyone to get back into the area. So, and that's going to be dictated, that's a conversation between the Forest Services as well as the Sheriff's Office. How can we have a managed process to allow people back into the area? I think the Sheriff would support that statement. We want to be able to have a very managed process. Sheriff, if you want to speak more to that. So, right now, as Brian indicated from the Weather Service, things aren't looking good the next few days. And we've got some real high winds coming again, is what they're predicting. And so, we don't want to put people in harm's way. That's the number one priority. And we know you're all really anxious to get back in your homes, and that's perfectly understandable. But, the sheriff's got to make, it's his decision. Do we open those gates? Because once you're in there, and what if we have to get you back out, right? And we put a lot of people's lives at risk potentially doing that. So that's a big decision, right? So bear with us. He doesn't take that lightly. He knows everybody wants to get back in as quickly as possible, but your safety is the number one thing right now. We're safe.
Hi, I'm Dennis Chavez. I've lived here my whole life. This is a question for you, for the Ranger District. Knowing the conditions the way they are now, camping's coming up, are you going to restrict fires or at least ban these fires? Or are we going to expect something else going on?
Thanks, sir. Great question that I was certainly expecting to come up today. So we base the decision on fire restrictions on a lot of things, usually fuel moistures and things like that. Then we factor in other considerations, weather. Hearing Brian's forecast not only for the next few days, but also for the longer term is kind of troubling, right? And so we factor that in also. We meet regularly with all of our partners, including the Weather Service, every week, every Monday, and we talk about these things. Normally, we envision going into fire restrictions a typical year. I'm not sure what typical is anymore. Usually we wind up doing that, maybe around Memorial Day or sometime after that. That seems to be moving up and up. I think we'll get there certainly well before Memorial Day. I don't know if it'll be this weekend or next weekend, but we continue to have those discussions. And it's the thing about